after I'd been doing this for quite a while, I encountered people who invented invisible friends with no metaphysical commitments. So I don't know if you've heard of these people. These are tulpamancers. Does this mean anything? No. Okay. This is a little corner of the internet that enables people to come together. So this is a group of people who sort of imagine they're doing this ancient Tibetan spiritual practice. But it's not. It is and is not like deity yoga. But they usually start. They tend to be more or less men, more or less in their 20s and 30s, definitely with time on their hands. And they come across this site that tells you that you can make an invisible friend. And you don't have to believe anything. And there are two techniques. One technique is visualization. So one of the first tulpamancers I met wanted a friend who was a fox. And he had the idea that it needed to be 10,000 hours. And so the early phase of these folks, this started around 2012, they found me because I wrote this book on God and evangelical Christianity. And one of the tulpamancers actually posted a review of the book on a tulpamancer site, said, "This is a great guide to tulpamancy, just ignore all that God stuff." And so what they do is that this young man who wanted to create a fox, he shut his eyes, vividly visualized the fox, tried to also feel the feel of the fox's fur, tried to see the outline of the fox's ears, tried to look at the nose, and it did that vividly. And he thought he had to do it for 10,000 hours. And probably a little earlier than that, he began, so this is the striking thing. The fox begins to feel autonomous, just as God begins to feel more present, and just as the magic seems to feel more real. So the fox became something that was not a fox. And the fox began to talk. And in fact, so I've now talked pretty systematically with a young colleague, to about 25 people. We flew them in from around the country, and so they showed up at Stanford, and we talked to them for 4 hours, and then we actually were trying to see whether the voice of their tuple would show up in an fMRI machine. But in any event, so
Wait, did it?
I think so. haven't a problem. It only really shows up. You've got a lot of activity to show up in a magnet, and it's a really noisy thing to be in a magnet. And but yeah, I think that so if you imagine that you're writing a letter, if you're asked a question and you write the answer. Then if you're asked a question, you imagine your mom is directing your hand and you write an answer. Those look the same. But if you ask your tulpa to answer the question for you using your hand, your brain looks a little different. So it's not published. We're still trying to analyze it. But there's something that's really going on. So again, I think that's what's really interesting, is that these experiences are real and powerful. They're not a way of talking. They're changing your experience.